to talk about when your camping trip goes random, which hopefully it never does. So what we're going to be talking about is how to prepare so things don't go wrong, but what to do if they do go wrong. What happens if you're not really ready for something to happen and you end up out in the wilderness and you're not prepared and something happens and you can't reach someone? So what can you do then? And what I really want you to think about are, what are the essentials? What do you need to be safe? And the first thing people think about really is food and water. Well, water, absolutely. Water's probably the number one thing you need to think about. Food is not the top thing on your list. And that usually surprises people when I say that, because they're like, oh, I need my dinner. You don't need your dinner. You're going to be okay. All right, you can live like a long time without food. You cannot live a long time without proper shelter to protect you from heat and cold, and you cannot live a long time without water. Just in case you don't have enough water with you, you happen to find a water source, but it's not clean water, or you're not sure if it's clean water, just take some little water purifying tablets. They're teeny tiny. I keep them in my first aid kit. I always keep them in my car, my first aid kit. I have them in my emergency kit at home. They're small pills. You just put them in some water for a few hours and the water is safe to drink. It literally kills like everything. So you can also get some filtration straws, very simple. You need to know how to start a fire and have something with you to start a fire. So if you don't have lighter fluid and matches, you probably should have some waterproof matches, but if you don't, have a magnesium fire starter. Believe it or not, do you know you can start a fire? You have to be very careful with this. You can start a fire with a 9-volt battery and some cotton balls. Touch them together, psh, it actually immediately catches on fire. It's very flammable, which means you cannot store them together. Be very careful. So shelter, you need a shelter. It's actually very simple. I'm going to show you several pictures here of some shelters. One is a diamond fly shelter, very easy. You basically stake one end of a shelter into the ground, tie 2 to 2 trees, and one end is up. So you can just sort of climb under the shelter, allows you to reach out to a campfire, but it's going to protect you from weather, and that will work just fine. And that's called a diamond fly shelter. The other one is really more of a primitive shelter. It's very simple. You just tie a rope or a string to 2 trees, drape basically it's called a poncho tent over the top of it, and just stake it down on both sides. It makes makes a triangle, and that's probably the easiest thing that you can do. And that's probably the most protective as well. Now, what I would do if you're going to have that kind of a shelter is just place some branches from a fir tree, not a pine tree. The way you tell the difference, pine trees, the branches don't lay flat. They're very prickly. A fir tree, the branches lay flat. All the needles go in one direction. They're flat. They make beautiful shelter themselves. So if you have nothing to make a shelter with, find a fir tree. The way you know it's a fir tree, besides the fact that the needles are flat, look underneath it. It's dry. So you can climb under a fir tree, and usually if it's snowing, there's no snow under a fir tree. If it's raining, there's no rain under a fir tree. So you can climb under there, and you can actually use that as a shelter. But if you have your own shelter, just take the branches so that you're not laying on the ground. It'll protect you a little bit. Find some way to elevate yourself off the ground just a tad. So now let's get down to food. I know you've all been waiting for dinner, right? So everybody's waiting for dinner. So you have no food, you're in the wilderness, what can you do? So in a nutshell, here's what you can eat. Well, nuts are one of them, but anything with fins, spurs, and feathers. You can eat grasses. Now, how do you know they're grasses compared to other types of long, skinny plants that look like grasses? Well, think of it this way. Grasses have joints. That means any type of a long plant that's got a joint in the middle of it, that's going to be a grass. If it's got 2 parts where it looks like it's folded and it's got an edge, that's a sedge. Some sedges are okay to eat and some are not, so don't eat those. So grasses have joints, sedges have edges, and that's how you can remember that. There's a simple rule. Leaves of 3, let it be. Okay, leaves of 3, let it be. It's usually like poison oak, except wild strawberries also have 3 leaves that are clustered together. The difference is a wild strawberry plant, it has a long red stem. My recommendation is if you're going camping, get a little handbook, but I have a lot more information in the blog. I would love to hear your tips. If you're really an outdoor enthusiast, you love camping, you're a wilderness nerd like I am, then please let me know. You love survival tips. Let me know what your tips are. And if this has been helpful to you, please post below what you really enjoyed learning about and share this with someone. Thank you.